Taj, talk about after you got done with Kecoughtan, like were schools offering you during that time frame, like your junior, senior year? I mean, what were the schools that were interested in you and how did you end up choosing the university you attended?
So there was a lot of schools in play. Coach Williams did a great job. Boo did a great job of getting good exposure for us. And at the time, there weren't a whole lot of exposure tournaments. So the few that they had a tremendous amount of coaches at them. And so typically after my sophomore year, going into my junior year, I started to get a lot of interest from UVA's, Old Dominion. I mean, just every level, every school on the East Coast, schools on the West Coast, just that I couldn't even understand where they saw me, because it wasn't like now where they have sections and you can actually see what coaches are at your game. The coaches just sat in the stands with parents. And so I never realized coaches were at the game. I just would come home and then these letters would come in the mail and you're like, oh, wow, this is cool. And they had all these questionnaires and they wanted you to fill them out and whatnot. So there were probably hundreds of schools that were recruiting me at that time. And making a decision was tough. I wasn't very knowledgeable about the whole college experience and what it looked like in sort of trying to figure out where I was going to go or what I wanted to do as an undergrad or anything like that. So I would literally call Boo and be like, Boo, what should I do? And he's like, Abraham, I'm not going to do that. I don't do that. I'm trying to get him. And I'm trying to get him to help me. I'm like, Boo, just tell me what to do. And so he said, well, you got to get it down to 10 to 15 schools. You got to figure out what you want. So obviously being in the state of Virginia, UVA was the powerhouse. They had the twins. They had Tammy Reese. That was like the school. And so for a long time, that was my number one choice. I was like, wow, UVA. I liked Old Dominion, liked some things about Wake Forest, Penn State, Duke, so there was a lot of different schools that I liked. Tennessee, at the time, UConn wasn't what it was now. Tennessee was the other big thing besides UVA.
Yeah.
And so, so trying to, figure all that out. And the best advice Boo gave me, he said, you just need to go where you think you're going to be taken care of. And then my dad told me, go where you're really a need and not just a want. And I felt like with some of the bigger schools that already had programs established, I'd be a want, I'd be another number. But if I went to some of these mid-majors where I'd be a need, I'd be able to flourish as a big fish and maybe have a really special career.
Did your dad, because he didn't mention anything, he didn't have an opinion? Or
no, he actually, my first 2 years of high school, he was still in the Virgin Islands. He hadn't come up with us at the time. So he was trying to give us, bits and pieces from afar. And for the most part, it was really overwhelming for my dad, because you got to remember, Ram, Fi, and myself, we were all in high school at the same time. And even though we don't hear much about, Ramadan's and what he did, he had some looks as well. And so for my dad, here are 3 of my kids in a 1 year span getting these looks, and all he's seen is free education. He could care less. He could really care less. He was like, go get that free education. And it was his dream. He made a joke when he so in the Virgin Islands, we had a basket nailed to our house because we didn't have a hoop. So he went out, got a hoop, and nailed it to the back of our house. And so we would go in the backyard and shoot on the house. And he told somebody, one of his friends says, why would you nail a hoop to the back of your house? What's wrong with you? And he said, I got 5 kids. There's no way I'm going to get 5 kids through college. I need them to get scholarships. And he said that when we were like 1, 2, 3. I mean, he claimed it. He put that out in the universe. He gave us that blessing before we even knew it. So, I mean, when I tell you, it's been crazy. It really has. So he didn't really necessarily give us a direction. He played at St. John's. And so obviously he said, if you want to go there, great. But it wasn't like he pushed any particular direction.
So different now hearing you talk about that. Just so different, the recruiting, and we're going to touch on that in a second, the college experience choosing school now, because now these guys, I'm blessed to receive an offer from this school. I'm blessed to, and the parents, are heavily involved, which they should be, but sometimes it can be misinformation. And that once again goes back to your family's humility, because your father and all you guys saw the big picture. And who did you end up choosing?
Oh, George Washington.
Yeah, yeah. I knew that, but I wanted to make sure everybody else knew that. Faisal, what happened with you? Like, when did they start coming, the letters, the phone calls? When did that start happening for you?
I started getting a lot of phone calls and stuff after my junior year. Boo Williams, actually, we had a lot of great tournaments, and so that gave me a lot of exposure. But I started getting a lot of, calls, Virginia Tech, the local schools first, Hampton University, Norfolk State, ODU, UVA, and then down the road, I got offers from Marquette, Louisville, Tulane. It was a lot of schools to choose from. My cousin was coaching at the time at American University, so I had a lot of interest in American. I thought they were a pretty good school, not a big name or what have you, but like Taj was saying, my dad just wanted us to go to a place that we could actually play, rather than go to a school where you're going to sit the bench and play behind somebody. And where a coach, you can get a good vibe from a coach, knowing that you're going to get in the program of play, maybe not your freshman year, but definitely your sophomore, junior, and so forth. So that was important for me. And my dad and my cousin were like brothers growing up. And so he had a good, kind of, I would say, he had a good foot in the whole situation as far as what school I was going to go by. So I ended up, like Todd was saying, narrowing it down to like 10, 15 schools, and then going from there. Ended up, going to prep school after high school. That's a misuse with the grading system and so forth, SATs and so forth. And so, coming from the islands, the system is a little different. So it was something for us to get used to. And for me, it was a big change. So I ended up going to MCI, and at MCI I got heavily recruited, got a little bigger, stronger, a little taller, and more schools were starting to come after me. And I remember coming back from prep school and going back to Boo Williams, and he was like, "Man, what happened to you? You were just you got big, I said, "Yeah, a lot of bumping iron and eating, and that was a lot. There was nothing really to do out that way." Ended up playing with guys like Kecoughtan Mobley, Sean Colson, and Max Good was a coach out there, really good at what he does, real familiar with the recruiting aspect of things. So he knew a lot more, college coaches that, came and looked at us and got a chance to talk to some other, college coaches as well. So it was a great experience. I mean, it was overwhelming, to say the least, because again, I was probably the first one that was going through this, and then Taj was shortly after, and so it was something that I had to figure out. I would say St. John's was in the picture. My dad didn't give me much insight as far as going there, but he did say, "Hey, if you want to go, hey, it'd be a good opportunity to follow my footsteps, but you don't have to go there if you don't want to." And I was like, "Okay, I get it," but he kind of stood back and left it up to me to decide. I remember all of us wearing St. John's University gear all through high school, so I think they were putting something in the mix, a subliminal message there, but at the end of the day, I didn't want to go to school in New York, and so that was kind of a decision for me to make there. Like I said, my cousin was at American University. I thought about that, and I said, "You know what, I don't want to go there just because he's family." I wanted to make sure, and especially with coaches leaving, going to different schools, I didn't want that to be the all reason why I went there. So I ended up looking at going to Marquette, and I had a great experience. Bo Ellis was heavily recruiting me from Marquette. Had a great visit there in the summertime, I might add. Wintertime was a little different, but they already signed me at that point. So, but it was a good experience for me. Marquette took me under their wing. I saw a position where I could play. I had to play under Jim McIlvain, Amal McCaskill, and Dane McKee. Those were the guys that were in my position already. And like I said, going to college was a reality shock for me because that was, night and day as far as, the competition and so forth. So when I got to college, I ended up playing against Jim McIlvain, and I remember him blocking my shot first practice out. And I'm like, what in the world? I'm used to jumping over guys and getting shots in. And this 7'1" guy kept blocking my shots. And I was just like, this can't be. So the coach was like, you got to find a different way to get around that. Either jump higher, get stronger, or develop, skilled moves to get around it. So that's what I ended up doing. But I mean, Marquette was my choice, but it was a hard decision just with all the, not to knock any of the other universities, but I felt that was the best decision for me.
Yeah, no doubt. Absolutely. It worked out. I remember following you while you were at Marquette. And then I remember early in my Virginia Tech career, you guys were playing my team in the NIT championship. You went against Smitty and those guys.
That was a heartbreaker for me. That was a heartbreaker. I remember that tournament, NIT. We lost that championship game, and I get to play against my old, buddy Ace Custis.
Ace Custis.
And so it was something, I think, at the final minutes of the game, it ended up being some free throws that won the game, and
Smitty made them. Yeah.
And it was great memories, but I run into Ace and I talk about it all the time. Like, man, that could have went differently, very easily, So, but it ended up how it was, and like I said, that game could have went either way, and it went in Virginia Tech's favor. But I ended up going. I was thinking about going to Virginia Tech because Ace was going there, and it was ironic that we had to play against each other.
That's
never
a
got
good
to
experience.
play against Allen Iverson in college and whatnot, or Damon, or other guys, George Mason, Michael Sharp, and some of those guys. But it was a good opportunity. Any chance I got to play against some of the guys that played with Boo Williams or in high school. So
that's great,
it was
man.
a good time.
Yeah, no doubt it was. I love watching it. And Nas, how was your whole recruitment? What happened with you? Like, when did it start for you?
Oh, man. It started roughly around my sophomore year. I started getting letters. My junior year, it started increasing with the offers. And then senior year, of course, it really rocketed off. But I would say mostly in my junior year, it wasn't really that hard for me to make a decision. Basically, it was to the point where which school was closer to home because I didn't want to move that far away from home. And it was also down to the point where who wanted me the most, kind of like what my dad was telling all of us, whoever wants you the most, where you would be a greater asset playing for. So my choice was to go with Loyola. I had other schools looking at me, Wyoming, Dayton, George Mason at the time, James Madison, who else? There was a few other schools I can't remember off the top of my head, but but I just knew. I said Wyoming, no, that's too far away. Dayton, that's too far down the coast. So I was like, Loyola, Maryland, Baltimore. I could do a 3-hour ride. That's all right with me. I'm good to go. And plus at the time, Coach Brian Ellaby was the head coach at Loyola, and Ronnie Thompson, John Thompson's little brother, and they were recruiting me hard. So at the time, I was just like, okay, I was on the phone with them almost every day, talking. They were just drilling me, telling me, you know what, you are guaranteed playing time. How much time you get is based on how you perform in practice. And to me, that was just real. You can't really tell somebody, hey, you're going to play. They were telling me the truth. They were telling me that, hey, when you get there, it's based on how you perform and how you produce, based on your playing time. So ended up signing with Loyola and going there for a year. It didn't pan out. Academically, got a little bit troubles. So I ended up transferring to where my cousin was coaching at now. He used to be at American. Then he ended up switching over to George Mason, where Paul Westhead was the coach. And his system over there was run the system. So I transferred over to George Mason, and there I finished up. But it was tough over there because, like I said, run the system. I'm like, run. What? So we did a lot of running. Lots of running. Michael Sharp can tell you. It was a lot. And that's all I can remember my redshirt year was just doing a run. I mean, even the track team was like, oh, crazy out there. We don't do that much running. So, but after that, man, it was all she wrote, man. It just, like stepping stones, just takes its own place, and thank God for just allowing us to have this journey that we had, you know, go to where we go. Because there's a lot of cats right now, you know, wishing to get one offer. And where we had offers like pick and choose, I mean, that's always a blessing to have, you know. So, you know, you got to work hard. I mean, and that's the point that we really talk about yet, but we worked hard, you know. I remember summers, I didn't have a summer off. I remember my dad saying that, you know, I wanted to work out at Walmart. I think it was a Super Walmart one summer. And he was like, no, you're doing Williams. You're playing basketball. That is your ticket into college. This is what you're going to do. You're not working. You're playing basketball. So like Todd was saying, you know, he had an idea in the system for us already that this is what you're going to do. This is your ticket. This is going to pay for your school. So, I mean, that's how it was for me.
Yeah, and you know, you're right. And I was actually going to get to that, but I'm glad you brought it up, the working hard part, because when you go to a game, even now, you see young men and young women in any sport, and especially successful athletes, you see how well they're doing and the benefits of their hard work. But the average fan or casual fan doesn't see the work they put in. Just touch on that briefly. Taj, you can go first. The work you put in on the collegiate and high school level. You know, Nas talked about how hard your father pushed you and other coaches pushed you, but like, did you miss out on stuff growing up? Like, what did you have to give up on? Like, you know, whatever it is. I mean, free time, weekends, what was it?
So you know how like one of the streets at spring break, like I never got spring break, and we would hear all the kids going to Nag's Head to hit the beach, and I've still never been to Nag's Head, but always missed spring break. I remember, you know, I was able to go to my ring dance, but I remember having to get in early because I had a game at 9 the next morning, and I'm literally on the court. I had this really cute hairstyle, and it was wrapped. And as I'm playing, the wrap is starting to fall, and I'm mad because I spent so much money yesterday to get it done, and you can't even have a hairstyle to last a certain amount of days. Braids were your best bet. But just, I mean, missing out a lot of stuff, like kids that just would go hanging or linemen or just, you know, kicking it. And it was like, no, I got to get in. We got things to do. And then it's also just understanding that, you know, because my dad always said, you know, you guys have a reputation that you got to maintain. And so you can't be out with knuckleheads, and you got to make sure you stay away from knuckleheads. So, you know, if you were out, and even though it was fun, if you saw some kind of shaky stuff going on, you had to leave. You know, we were like, that's knucklehead behavior. We got to go. And I was fortunate, you know, I was able to hang out with my brothers, Fi, Nas, and Ramadan. We hung out all the time, and so I always had built-in bodyguards to, you know, kind of kick it with, you know, whether we might go to the beach or something. But we didn't get to do a lot of the normal stuff that kids did, just because we had practices, or Mr. Bako, Damon's dad, put together a workout in the summer at Kecoughtan one summer, and we would go up there 3 days a week, and you would work on your left hand for like 45 minutes, and then you play pickup. And so it's just all the things that you sacrifice just to get better. And, you know, and to me, it was worth it. Although at the time, I'm sure I complained quite a bit because you just don't understand all the time why you got to work so hard, but you have to work that hard to get what you want.
Yeah. Faisal, your work ethic.
Yeah, same thing with Taj. We had, you know, summers were pretty short for us. I mean, we didn't have the normal summer, you know, like everybody else. We were involved with Boo Williams, AU, or whatever, something, you know, and so that kind of kept us busy. I always had my brothers and sisters to play against, so that kept me busy because we were all kind of competitive, you know, whether we were in the backyard and what have you. So I didn't have to worry about searching to find a gym, or, you know, or trying to find somebody to play with. We already had our 4 or 5, you know, that we brought up to the court, and my dad would join us a couple times here and there when his knees weren't hurting, and we would just go, you know, and we're always doing something basketball related because we were a basketball family. So, I mean, that was pretty much, it wasn't really that much of a sacrifice because everybody else did the same thing. We felt we were all, you know,
yeah,
I would say it was just a part of a bonding moment for, you know, for our relationships, reason why we're so close, and our friendships are so close, you know, as brothers and sisters. We just always had each other's back, you know, or, you know, supported each other for all our games and all our accomplishments and so forth. I didn't get to watch Nas and a lot of people do a lot of things because I always had, practices and stuff in college. And so that kind of deterred a lot of, trying to get to some of Tajma's games or Nasi's games. There's always something going on. So at the same time, we always knew each other, supported one another, but we had things going on we had to take care of. So, we were always busy in separate directions. That was just the nature of the beast.
Yeah, and you talk about y'all bond, and I've seen the bond, y'all family closeness up close firsthand. But funny, like, to be honest, like, was it competitive? Like, y'all growing up, like, because when you have that many people in the house, and I've been around, Serene, all of, you guys are outspoken. I've been by Taj when she's yelling chasers. She's like, like, I've been near her when she's yelling for her son or her daughter, which is good because she's going around for her kids. Did it get competitive in the house, like where y'all really were going at it, or was it, let's break bread together? Was it competitive?
Oh yeah, definitely competitive.
Very, very competitive. And it was always a question of who was the best in the family, who that kind of thing. And everybody always said me, so it was kind of like, it was always competitive. A little game of horse or a little game of this became competitive, and so, from one, I was not going to lose to a girl, and especially to these guys. But there were some games I lost, and I said, hey, go again, best out of 5. We ain't doing that, no. So it was always bragging rights as far as who was going to be, but we made each other better. For, iron sharpens iron, and that kind of how it was.
And
I'll tell you,
go ahead,
Dwight, the funniest thing is, how Nas talks about, he watched us play. So Nas was notorious for, if I did a move on him on Monday, he was going to do that move on me on Friday. And then he would let me know, I just did your move on you. It's like you insulted because he scored on you, and then he told you how he scored on you in your own move.
We have a basketball back of our house. So many times we've been back there battling, dumping on each other, and just, all really having some fun, and my dad used to sit back there and kick back and just really enjoyed watching us battle against each other and play each other. So it was competition in the Abraham household,
Yeah, for sure.
It was all out of respect, it was all out of respect, it was all out of love and fun. Yeah.
Now you're breaking up a little bit, because I heard what you said, just to let you know you're breaking up a little bit. But
okay.
with you guys now are parents. I know you had great careers. Now your kids play sports. Taj, you're coaching, correct?
Correct, at George Mason.
Yeah, you're coaching at George Mason. So let's talk briefly. We're almost done, but I got to ask y'all this. I know, we've had a conversation when our kids have been up at Coach Webb's spot training and doing camps. But Taj, I'll start with you. Today's athlete, including your daughter and Patrick, your son and daughter, and coaching the older kids, is it different, harder, fun, frustrating, or all of the above? How is it?
I'd say all of the above. It's so competitive right now. And so as a coach, I'm competitive. And as a parent, I'm competitive. And then my kids are competitive, And so a lot of times you have all of that competitive energy and it's coming to a head. And it can be tough because, as a former player, I know what it takes to get to that next level. But I also know that in my high school days, I had breaks. I mean, we took some time away and we would just, go hang with our cousins, or we would take, maybe not touch a ball for 4 or 5 days, and it was okay. In this day and age, you don't touch a ball for 4 or 5 days, you're in your kid's face like, Tommy's getting better down the street, okay? Little Susie is working. Where are you? So it's just so different where we didn't have, my mom didn't come in the living room harassing us and saying, get off your butt and go do this. And I feel like as parents, we are wired to have to be in this competitive mode to push our kids. And then the same thing when I coach, I want to push my players, I want them to be better. And so I feel like it's so harder now to balance the mental break from the mental competition, because you spend most of your time trying to keep up with the way the world is now with athletics and how much that goes into it. I mean, Dwight, you got skills coaches, you got strength and conditioning coaches, you got shooting coaches, you got dribbling coaches. I mean, it's IQ coaches. I mean, there's all these different pieces now, mental toughness coaches, and you're trying to squeeze all of these people into your kids' world. And it's just something that we didn't have. Our mental toughness came because Fi or Nas elbowed me in my ribs and it felt like it cracked. And I didn't want to cry because I'm like, I'm not going to be the one out here shedding some tears on an elbow in the ribs. That was mental toughness. You were good. You got over it. So when you got in the game and somebody elbowed you, you were thinking that didn't even feel like nothing.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
It's just so different now. It's, it's very different because everything is so structured for our kids in every moment. And we didn't have that much structure. And I just think mentally it does something that's not as positive as what we had growing up.
And your husband played at GW, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
I remember when I first met him when Patrick, your son, and my son Isaiah were playing bitty ball, rec ball before they went on the AAU. And I remember saying to him, and your husband's very chill and laid back. I was like, dude, I'm always animated. I was like, yo, you know how good your wife is? He's like, yeah. He just looked at me. Yeah.
It's funny because so there was a time when I was dating my husband in college. He actually played against George Mason when Nasi was playing. And wow. I still have the picture of both of them standing at the free throw line. I don't know what they were saying, but you could see them, that they were talking at the free throw line. And everybody was asking me, who are you rooting for? I mean, this is weird. And I was like, oh, brother all day, boo. Brother
yes.
all day. That man ain't put a ring on my finger yet. Brother all day.
Yeah. Do you, before I get to your brothers, do your kids, because this is always something fun to me when I talk to my kids about my career, even Mike and Marcus, they just look, because we didn't have the internet and all of that. There's stuff online now, YouTube, but they always look at you like, yeah, whatever, like I'm hyping myself up. Do your kids know how good you were?
I think part of them did it, but the number one thing I hear from my son, little Patrick, is, oh, mommy, you played when basketball was old in the old days. It's different now. He always got jokes about the old days. I said, so what, was the basketball square? I'm confused. What does that mean? But they always tell me, you don't understand. And I think a lot of the I don't understand must come from the pressure of social media, because I look at them like, I played this game. Like, I've been out there. I know what it's like for your coach and teammates and everything to be stressing you out and trying to still perform and da-da-da. But no, they look at you. They look at me like, Dwight, they look at me like I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I don't know what I'm talking about. It's crazy. It's just crazy. I don't know if the same for Fi and Nas, but it's crazy. Now, Fi and Nas can tell my son something, and it's like, oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right, Uncle. Do your best.
Yeah. Yeah. Faisal, your kid, I mean, your two kids, I know your daughter's just getting into it, but Isaiah's been hooping for a minute. He's one of the top players in our area at his age group. Does he know that you were a dog on the court? Does he know that you were that dude, or what's his?
At a very early age, he kind of looked up to me, and I'm not saying he doesn't anymore, but I'm older in this day and age, and we still try to go one-on-one against each other. And so, there'll be some times he kind of, I'll let him win, maybe. And, because he got a crazy outside shot, and I don't play outside that much.
Yeah.
And so he'll beat me in a game 1 or 2 here and there. And so he starts thinking that, I'm better than you, and then, and all that trash talking. And at that point, okay, I'm like, all right, I gave you a couple games. I'm going to play serious with you. And, I may have cracked him in the chest a couple times, and then, said, okay, my bad, let me ease up a little bit. But, but it's, I think he still looks up to me in a sense. We watch highlight tapes and stuff like that. So he does have an idea of what I was about. and where I came from. I could barely dunk now, but that was my game back then. And so as long as I have some footage, that's where he still looks up to me. But right now, you know, if I didn't have that footage, I don't think he would be taking my advice. And like Todd says, I could tell him this and that, and he would look at me crazy, side eye, like, Dad, I know it. You're not doing it right. You don't know what you're talking about, kind of thing. You know?
Oh my gosh,
but
that's crazy.
The minute Todd or Nance or somebody else say something to him, the same thing that I say to him, he's like, oh, okay. I'm like, didn't I just tell you that? You know, but you know, it's a frustrating atmosphere between me trying, and I know yourself, you're coaching your son and what have you. And that's part of the reason why I didn't want to get in coaching, especially, you know, on my son's team, because it's just the dynamic of that is, it's too frustrating for me to deal with, you know, mainly because of my son being on the team. So that would be something hard for me to do, because I know I'm in his ear at home, in the car, you know, on the court, on the sidelines, you know, and I know he's tired of hearing from me. So I always want somebody else to do the coaching and, you know, give him all the, you know, all the respect due, and try not to change anything that any coach is doing at the time. Because I know that could be frustrating as a coach. You know, you trying to tell your kids one thing to do this and that, and you hear, you know, your parents of the other kids on the court, do this and do that. Why? Don't listen to the coach. Shoot yours, get yours. Stop passing the ball. Stop, you know, stop studying screens and do this and do that. Now, I know how hard it is for coaches and yourself and so forth. So and Todd, you know, I know. So I step back and kind of let the coach do what the coach does for the team. You know? Yeah.
Did you, before I get to ask Nas, did you talk when you played? Because Faisal, when I remember watching you play in college and in high school, and even on that AAU team with Damon and them, I know Iverson talked. He ain't never stopped talking. But I don't remember, like you, I just remember you dunking with authority, blocking shots, rebounding with authority. I don't remember you ever. Did you, because you talk?
So I talk to my teammates and they hear me from, you know, special things, but it's when guys start trash talking to me during the games and stuff, which, you know, they did, it was a different, for me, I'm laid back, cool, like, okay, next play down, I'm gonna get you back for something, you know, either for, I'm gonna dunk you or block your shot or something, you know, and that was my way of communicating on the court. I got a lot of, you know, guys from my team like, man, if you'd have been that leader, you know, that type of leader, that verbal leader back in the day, you would have been, you know, I needed some of that advice here and there, you know, and a lot of teammates saw me as, you know, hey, you showed that leadership by the way you played, you know, and I was kind of like that Dennis Rodman. I love contact, you know, I was that guy on the team that kind of did a lot of the dirty work, and when they needed me to score here and there, they'll throw the ball into me, and so, you know, that was my type of game, was just to show on the court more so than trash talk. And I didn't get much out of the trash talking because I didn't want to trash talk and then somebody get mad, then they come back and try to block my shot or something, you know. So it was kind of playing a game of chess. I wanted to, you know, make people believe I wasn't blocked in, but at the same time, I'm ready for you. If you try to drive to this basket, I'm gonna block your shot. I'm ready for you, you know. And when the game started, it was always like, I went into this mode of, you know, I'm locked in, you know. I didn't really want to sit there trying to, you know, veer off. I could trash talk. Now, outside of the game, I could trash talk. Yeah, we kind of did this to you guys when we played against you and this and that. But during the game, it was like something clicked in my head and I just was ready to just play. And all I wanted to focus on was winning the game. And so that was my game.
Yeah, no doubt. Nas, your children, I'm more familiar with their kids. Your kids are how old?
I have a 9-year-old now, and I have a 13-year-old.
Are they carrying on that lineage with sports and athleticism, and are they student athletes as well?
Oh yeah. So both of my kids, my 8-year-old, he plays. He's just turning 9. He plays on 10U basketball team. So he's been playing up, you know, for a while now, and he's actually the tallest person that's on the court, you know, so he's growing like wildfire. And my daughter is pretty much similar. She's 13, almost 16 now. So, and she's playing, and she's, you know, elevating her post. It took her a while to come to her game, but now she's a beast in the post, you know.
and everybody, and he's playing up. So yeah, his kids are good. Little Nas is gonna be baby Shaq for real. I mean, he's got power, he's got some good touch, he moves light. So I'll let Nas finish. I was just giving him time to get to his area.
Okay.
Yeah, so yeah, both of my kids, they're doing very well. And they're you know, but just keeping them
It's still
on
staticky
top of the game. It's just I'm not sure why it's staticky.
Yeah, I don't know either. Sometimes it's sometimes it's just the connection. Yeah. Well, look,
back on. Let me see if that works for me.
Okay.
Is that better?
Yeah, it's not choppy.
It's not choppy no more? Okay. All right. So yeah, I'm not quite sure why it's doing that, but yeah, but my kids, man, they're growing. They're going to probably be the next best thing.
So Naj, your phone, for everybody listening and watching, your phone got a little choppy. So we're gonna start that question over again so everybody can hear and make sure they know about your daughter, your kids. So tell me about your kids, their height and ages again, and what they're playing.
All right, so basically, my son, he's 9. He just turned 9 on the 27th, and my daughter's 13. She'll be 14th on the 27th of September. But both of my kids are out of the charts on their growth rate. So my son, he's maybe about 5'2", 5'2.5" right now at 9, and he's pretty much dominating on this AAU team. He's pretty much the go-to guy that the coach relies on. They try to run the offense through him, and so far he's been stepping up to a plate. You know, it's been a lot of pressure for a 9-year-old especially. And I always tell my kids, you know, y'all are like way ahead of the game than I was when I first started playing basketball. You know, I remember I started playing until I was about 12 when I came up here to the U.S. from the islands. So I tell my daughter and my son the same thing. And my daughter, she's 13 and she's about 6 feet now, you know, and she's the dominant one of her team in the post. And she's just, you know, keeping the Abraham legacy alive with dominance in the post. But the one thing I always install in them is they never try to talk when you're on the court, you know. And I said, always let your game do the talking. You know, I never talk smack. I never say anything to anybody. I mean, people talk smack to me, like, yeah, we're going to take you on. And I know they're just trying to get in my head because it's part of the game, you know, trying to strategize, whether you're going to get into their head mentally or physically, you know. And I'm the type, like I said, you know, I like to bang. You know, so I like to get into their heads physically, you know, by banging on them, hitting on them, letting them know that this is my house. In order for you to come through this house, you got to come through me, you know. And I tell my kids the same thing when they play on the court. This is your house. When you step on that court, this is yours. Don't let nobody come in this paint going on you. Don't let anybody do anything to you. Don't hurt them, but at the same time, let them know that this is your house, you know. So that's what I try to install with my kids, just to let them know that, hey, you got to work hard because there's somebody out there working harder than you every day. So that's how it is, man. You gotta really push it to them and grind. Like I was saying, these kids don't really know how we used to be growing up. You know, they didn't know that they used to call me Baby Shaq when I play ball, you know. But, you know, when I run into my friends and stuff, you know, around the way, they were like, yo, you know, your dad used to do this and that, you know, your dad this, that. And so this is when they really start sinking in, when they really start understanding, like, oh, yo, my dad was pretty good then, you know. Kind of like how my father told us how great he was at St. John's and all that. We was like, yeah, he used to do this and that, until we found some newspaper articles with him all over the newspaper doing X, Y, and Z, playing against, you know, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and all this stuff. And I'm like, oh man, he was really good, you know. So, you know, I think in time they will start seeing how great we were, and you know, and how great they were going to be too as well, you know.
Yeah. So I want to get your final thoughts on what the game has taught you and how you're applying it today. When a lot of people I choose for these spotlight interviews, it's because I'm impressed with their legacy and how they're using whatever skill set they had in high school and college, or even if they didn't go to college, and how they're applying to their life today. Taj, I know you're coaching, but in a lot of ways, what has the game taught you in regards to how you are a mother, how you parent your kids, how you handle adversity, whatever, in what capacity, how is the game of basketball and just playing in that era made you a better person, or have you learned from your mistakes? And what capacity has it helped you?
I think it's helped me all the way around, because it's introduced me to a sport that's introduced me to an amazing amount of people, mentors, coaches, friends. It was a tool that brought me closer to my siblings. As a parent, I utilize a lot of the discipline and understand that you have to have some structure in whatever you do, whether it's as a parent or when I was a player. And basketball taught me how to have that structure, and how structure doesn't always have to be a negative thing. I think that was something important that I learned, that there's a positive piece to structure. But more importantly, basketball was fun. I mean, it was a high I can't explain. And it still is to this day. And so when I see my kids play, when I see my nieces and nephews play, it helps me reignite that feeling again that basketball gave me so many years ago, that it still gives me today, that I get when I'm coaching on the floor, when I get when I'm watching my kids. My oldest brother, Ramadan, his kids play. He has twin girls. And so it's fun watching them play, and they dominate on their team. And so it's just been great. His son as well. So it's just been great being able to continue having the camaraderie, the fun, the energy, and the love that basketball has been for me, to still have it and be able to do it next chapter with my kids, my nieces, my nephews.
Absolutely. And I love watching them play. I love your daughter. She's so humble, and she's such a hard worker. I saw her at Woodbridge back during the girls' season, and she had worked hard. Darius was coaching them, and I had my client there. He was getting training. I was just sitting there just trying to lay in the cut. She came all the way across the court and spoke to me, gave me a hug and spoke. And she's just class personified. And I look at her and I see you, and it's just crazy, because I'm like, I said, do you know how good your mom was? And she just looks at me and she says, I don't know. But yeah, thank you for that, because I appreciate it. Nas, what has the game taught you? How do you apply it today? What has it taught you? You on mute. Nas, you on mute? All right.
Yeah,
go ahead now. Go ahead. What has the game taught you? All right, go ahead.
But it taught me to be humble, be respectful of the game, and really love the game, and just to really look at things in a bigger light. You know, I always tell them that the game of basketball is just a game. So a lot of times when they get upset when they lose a game, or when they get upset because something didn't happen the way they wanted to happen in the game, I always tell them it's just a game, right? And that you got to learn to, understand how to lose and how to recover from your loss, and how to get back on your feet and get going again, So that's the lesson learned as far as, once you fall down, you got to learn how to get back up again and keep pushing. So, and that's the concept that I got out of it, and that I'm trying to install in my kids to understand as well. You just got to keep pushing and keep, trying to be the best that you can be. As long as you give 100% every day when you're on the court or when you're off the court, and then that's how it is in life, man. You got to give it 100% to be good.
Yes, sir. What about you, Faisal?
Yeah. So basically, what I take out of this is, my kids started playing the game, and I always tell them, if you want to do this, I will support you. I will drive you to the games. I will take you to practice, to work out, give you insight as far as what to do, not to do, and that kind of thing. But you got to want to do it. If you don't want to do it, then don't waste my time, because I already, did my thing. And this is your life that you got to, live and how far you want to go with it. So if you want to play basketball, great. If you want to swim or do whatever, do whatever you're going to do, and decide to put 100% into it. Like Tony Rutland and Dane Baker was talking about work ethic. That's something that a lot of kids are starting to understand. If you gotta start doing stuff for yourself, not somebody else telling you that you have to do it. And that's something that I always realize, that if you don't have the love for the game, you don't have the work ethic for something that you're doing, whether it be anything, you're never going to succeed far in it, because you're always going to rely on somebody else to tell you that you got to do this or do that. So I always tell people, find something that you love to do and develop a work ethic around doing that without somebody having to tell you to do this or that. And if you don't have supportive parents or, you know, a mentor or somebody that can help you out with that, you know, take initiative and learn things, you know, watch some games, develop. A lot of times back in the day, we didn't have all these, trainers and facilitated, you know, people taking interest in all these kids. It was something that you just watched the NBA or watched Mike or watched, you know, somebody do, and you kind of like imitated those things, you know, to become better. A little bit of this, a little bit of that. And I always told my son, like, you know, I always tried to teach him initially growing up how to play the game and the things that I did, you know, and what to do in the court. But he's got to become his own person, you know, try to do and implement the things that are good for you. Develop a move that sticks with you, you know. Everybody has their own, you know, footprint in this game and in life, you know, and they got to define and to find out how that applies to them. So I always, you know, tell my son and my daughter and whoever else I come in contact with, develop your game and develop who you are as a person. But that work ethic is definitely something that's important. You gotta find a way to push yourself by yourself, you know, especially if we don't have somebody there to help you along the way to do that.
Yeah, well, that was very, very well said. And once again, I want to thank y'all for another great legacy spotlight. I can't tell you, I know I see y'all at these different tournaments and workouts, but I always show y'all so much love because coming from the era we came from, it's not so much we made it out or we're doing so much better. It's just the fact that we are living proof of hard work and sacrifice and staying positive and focused. And I just want to tell you to all three of y'all, and I tell Ramadan and Serene, everybody, your family is great. You guys mean the world to me. I respect how you're raising your kids. I love watching them all play. I love seeing them grow into their own young men and young women. And I'm excited about the future for them. And I thank you all for a great show. It's just great going down memory lane and seeing, you know, and reminiscing about all the battles. But thank you guys again for a great show. And I appreciate y'all.
Dwight, thank you so much for having us. We appreciate you, and we can't leave the show without giving a major shout out to A, you for having us, and B, to our mom, Harriet Abraham, who made sure that we always had the right food in our stomach so we could practice and play. So, Mom, hello.
Well, will she be able to see this when I post it? Does she have, okay,
yes.
Good. So, hey, Mom, I appreciate you for having some great kids. Some athletic, tall kids. I still remember when they came to Hampton. It's crazy. Yeah, you know, but no, shout out to your mom. And again, you guys be blessed. Stay safe out here. Hopefully we see each other when this thing is lifted. But God bless all of y'all. I appreciate y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dwight, man. Appreciate it, man.
Yes, sir. Hey, Nas, before I get off, don't come on my Facebook talking trash. My page. He always come on my page. Anytime I post something, he come on my page talking. Hey, nah, he's trash. I'll be like, hey, man, don't ambush my Facebook page.
Out of control, Nas. Out of control.
Y'all stay up. I'll talk to y'all.
Hey,